In this video, I'm going to walk through how to protect your data types from changing in Workbench if you want to change the column name of the destination column in Domo. And so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to unprotect my column because I want to change the destination column name. And let's say I just want to change this to production costs. And I want to make sure that my data type stays as a long. And so I have locked my data type. And let's say that unbeknownst to me in this column, protection cost, that there was an E or a string introduced into the data. And this would typically change the data type to be a string instead of a long. But let's see what happens because I have locked my data type. Before I execute this, let's go over into the Configure tab and see how Workbench handles errors and some of the different options that are available to me. So in Configure, there's an additional settings section. And in the error handling section, you can choose how Workbench handles data errors like the one that I just introduced into the data set with an E. Now, the default option is to abort jobs on an invalid data error. And so let's see what will happen if that is the option that is selected. So if we jump back into the Schema tab, I've changed my destination column name. My data type is a long, and I've locked my data type. And I've indicated to Workbench that I want a job to fail if my data type changes, or if there's any data that is going to be introduced that's different than the data type that I've selected. And my column is unprotected. So I'm going to execute this, and this job is going to fail. Even though the column is unprotected, which would generally allow schema changes to pass through for both data types and for column name changes, because I have indicated in my error handling that if any of the data cannot be parsed into the data type I've chosen, that I want the job to fail. So this is a way that you can update names of columns in Domo while also being sure that the data types for each of those columns are protected. Some other options that are available for error handling are I can skip the entire row if it contains invalid data like the E, or I can replace invalid cells with a null value. I'm going to choose to skip the entire row and then save that. Now the last job execution failed because I had chosen to abort the job. But now that I've updated my error handling to say that I simply want to skip the row and not include that in my data set, this job will actually be successful now because I have changed my destination column. I've indicated I want to allow that change to pass through by unprotecting the column. And I've locked my data type. And so now if I execute this job will actually be successful because Workbench will notice that I have said that I want to skip any rows of data that do not fall in line with the data type that I've selected. So if I look in the logs, I can see here that data value E and my production cost column could not be parsed into a long, and so the row was skipped. And then Workbench continued to execute the job and finished successfully. So that is how you can protect data types, protect your data sets from re-indexing a column, while also having the flexibility and the freedom to update destination column names. Now, this behavior is a little bit different if you change the column name in your source data set. So if I change this one to say production costs, and I save that, Workbench will handle this a little bit differently. because when I change the source name of my data, Workbench handles that as a deleted column and as a newly added column. So if I execute this, Workbench is going to delete that column, so to speak, and then it is going to add a new column. And when it adds a new column, because there is an E in my data, it is going to add that new column as a string. And I can see that that was done here. Production costs were added as a string, and that column is protected. So if I want to add or change the name of a column in my source data, but I want to protect my data type, it would make sense to change that destination column first in Workbench, or to double check that that data is going to come in to Domo as the data type that I would like, and then update my source column.